I mean, there's two games in particular that I want to talk about, but yeah, I imagine a lot of the conversation is going to be dominated by. I mean, we should let Dav
Certain
know because I realize
franchises.
we're
Koji
talking to each other
Kondo?
about this.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
Let's keep it a secret.
okay,
No,
okay,
Johnny.
okay. I do know. That's another. Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to episode 2 of Video Games Ahoy. My name is Jonathan Radford, and I'm once again joined by Dav Gabe.
Hello.
And Zach Hamilton.
Hi.
How are you doing, fellas?
Very
Man.
good.
It's really good
How are you?
to do another episode. How are you doing, Johnny?
Episode 2. It feels like such a long time ago that episode 1 was upon us, but here we are on episode
Back
2.
in it.
Yeah, we've had a pretty big week with regards to the podcast. I'm just going to list a few
You've been
places.
busy.
Well, we'll get into that
You've
later.
been putting it all together.
Yeah, few hours here and there, and by few I mean lots, and by here and there I mean all the time. I'm just going to list a few places that we've managed to get onto, by the way. So we're on iTunes now. We're on Spotify, TuneIn, Deezer, not Google. Not quite
Not
good enough for
Google.
Google yet. Not good enough for Google quite
Come on,
yet.
Google.
But
Sort it out.
hopefully we'll be there in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so we are back for episode 2. I want to thank you guys again for being here as we start this episode 2 again. We also have a Patreon page, which we are slowly building on, and hopefully, if you want to support us, you can donate to us, which will really help the channel grow, and we'd really, really appreciate that. As well as Patreon, you can follow us on the usual websites like Twitter, FaceEB, also known as The Book. And if you're interested in seeing our faces, then we are recording on YouTube. So check us out there as well. And finally, before we get on to our first question, I just want to say a huge thank you to a number of people who have helped us out this week.
There's been a lot of cool stuff made.
There's
for us
been
this week.
so many amazing people who have helped us out so much, and I just want to thank them straight away. That's Grace Archer, my soon-to-be sister-in-law, James Davison, Julie Davison, and Dominic Ingham. This collection of supreme individuals, they created the music for our channel, so I just want to say a big thank you to you all. As well as those people, I also wanted to thank Harry Grech. He's the person that created the amazing logo that you've no doubt seen. So thank you, Harry. Right.
Guys,
Yeah, should we start?
talk about some games.
Yeah, should we talk about games? Who wants to hear me talking about Patreon? I don't think anyone does. No, I think everyone does.
Everyone does.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
mom does.
Yeah, your mum does.
Yeah. she's
My
gonna
dad
donate.
does as well. My dad actually said to me earlier,
dad's gonna donate.
he was trying to listen in. He was like, John, I was trying to watch your program, and he was listening to it on a podcast, and he was like, I just couldn't see any pictures. I think he thought, I think he thought it was YouTube. Anyway,
It's quite exciting.
yeah, my dad. He knows nothing about video games, but apart from Fibbage, but
Sure. I mean, great game.
yeah, great game. Yeah. So to those of you who don't know, Dav, Zach, and myself are actually professionally trained singers. And it's actually how we all met. Dav and myself trained at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff, and Zach and I met on a tour we did together in 2017. Do you remember?
Gosh, what a long time ago.
Well, love changes everything. Zach,
Now is
I'm
not
just
a
gonna
good
say
time. You know what? We need a whole side episode to talk about that experience.
about that experience. Yeah, that's
We might get in trouble. I mean, maybe they.
that's a
maybe they'll
Patreon
listen.
episode in itself. People are gonna want to hear those
you know
stories.
What? Put it aside. Let's put it aside.
But yeah, so music plays a huge part in our lives, and it's something we're all incredibly passionate about.
Oh, I see where you're going. with
Yeah,
this.
you see where I'm going. With that in mind, shall we talk video game soundtracks?
Oh my God, please.
Should we do it?
shall.
So I feel like me and Zach might have the same game. So I'm going to go to Dav
I've got a couple.
first.
So I'm going to try not talk about. I'm not going to talk about the obvious one. I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
it for a little bit. But I did put down a bunch of other ones.
Okay,
So that we
okay.
can, because I want people to listen to ones that they might not have otherwise heard.
That's a
That
good
would be
shout.
cool thing.
Let's start with Dav, because I definitely know me and you are going to talk about one specific game for a good while. So Dav, let's start with you. What are your favorite soundtracks? Yeah, your favorite game soundtracks.
Cool. Okay, I've got a few. I've got a little list.
A little list.
I'm gonna rattle some also participated awards. before I get to my main ones. Got to give a shout out to the game Grease or Gree. I can't remember how it's pronounced, but it was a couple of years ago, 2018. One of my favorite games of all time. Beautiful game, just beautiful illustrations. Really touch. It's the only game that's ever drawn a tear from my eye.
Really?
Yeah, and it's stunning. And part of that is the soundtrack by a band from Barcelona called Berlinist. So I want to give a shout out to them. Incredible. Yeah. I've been listening to their not video game album, The Winter Hexagon. Really good stuff. Really beautiful. And another shout out to Olivier de Rivière, who, amongst other things, wrote the music for A Plague Tale: Innocence. Came out last year.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's a cool
sensational game. Yeah, really cool game. Loads of lovely ideas in there.
I actually didn't think of that for the sound when I was thinking of soundtracks, but I do remember it being very sort of striking when I played that game.
Just beautiful way to set the scene there with that music. Who else are we going to go for? Jonny, you'll appreciate this. Austin Wintory, who wrote the soundtrack to Journey. But specifically the Banner Saga trilogy, which is something you need to play and is a phenomenal series of games, tactical RPG. In its
Rosie and I actually bought
twisted them. Norse. Pardon?
Rosie and I bought them straight after we played Fire Emblem because you recommended them, and she was in a Fire Emblem zone, and we're just like, "What can we play? That's like Fire Emblem."
Get on it.
Banner Saga.
Get on it. It's challenging. It's gritty, and the music, beautiful. Austin Wintory is one of the best in the biz. Okay, now, so there's one that I know that you're going to want me to chat about. So I'm going to talk about him last. But my two main ones, the soundtrack to Hellblade.
Oh yes.
Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a good show.
If anyone has seen the announcement trailer for Hellblade 2, Senua's Saga, that they did at the Game Awards last year, like, from the music from that, you can tell it's just like haunting and just aggressive. And the sound design of Hellblade is the best sound design I've ever experienced in a game.
Yeah.
One of those games where you have to wear a headset because the voice, all the panning and where everything's placed, because you're going playing as a character who suffers from psychosis, and it's just incredible. And the sound design team at Ninja Theory, David Garcia Diaz, and Andy Laplegua, who is, I think, from like a Nordic band, like whatever the genre of metal that is. But it's insane. Love it. And gotta give a shout out to Martin O'Donnell, Halo.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That is my top.
Great shout.
That's my top guy, Martin O'Donnell from the Halo franchise. Just so many iconic pieces.
Yeah.
Such a lovely theme. And obviously he did 1, 2, and 3 ODST, Halo Reach, and then Bungie's Destiny.
Yeah.
What a man, Martin O'Donnell.
Honestly.
Just iconic. Absolutely iconic.
I always love when you watch like video game concerts. He's always there, and which I just think is the best thing. It's
cool.
just so cool. Just be like, this is my rock band, and he's just on stage.
I think that's a very cool thing to see, is when you get to see someone who's written a piece be involved. Obviously, typical of watching a band or whatever. But I think for like film and game music, when you get to see them either, as you say, playing or conducting, you get to see them really like enjoy their own thing, which I guess sounds a little bit like self-absorbed. But I have to say, my experience of seeing that is really awesome. I love watching all that.
Yeah.
I watched a couple. Well, I was watching one recently with who was it that did The Last of Us? Gustavo. I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry. And there's something of him playing one of his guitar parts, and it's just like, I don't know. There's something just really lovely about getting to see them do that.
I actually I have a really good experience of a video game concert. Rosie surprised me last year and bought me tickets to see Final Fantasy in concert at the Royal Albert Hall.
Sick.
I was going to bring up Nobuo Uematsu.
I mean, it was only a matter of time before he did come up, because, I mean, that experience in itself. So the first half of the show, they played all the songs from Final Fantasy VII in the lead up to the game being released. And that was incredible, because there's so many pieces of music from that game where for me personally, you said earlier, Dav, games that make you cry. I bawl my eyes out all the time to games. I'm constantly just like sobbing away. Just
you're a weepy mess.
I am a weepy mess, and that game in particular, Final Fantasy VII, is one of them. But yeah, you were going to talk yourself about your experiences.
Yeah, Nobuo Uematsu. I think that's how you
it is. I checked earlier.
Nailed it. I mean, the man is the best in the biz.
Yeah.
Best in the biz.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible stuff. I mean, whether it's Final Fantasy VII or, Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger.
A lot of the Final Fantasy games, the Romancing Saga games, just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Just so many iconic pieces of music that feature throughout the entire franchise. And I think, maybe he's benefited from these pieces of music being so prevalent in so many games, like iconic, and you can picture any game that it's been in. But the pieces of music have to be so good that they did get retained, throughout. Just because they've been in, they're not well known because they're in every game. They're in every game because they're beautiful pieces of music, and that is what made them well known. And it's just absolutely incredible.
Well, it's like the opening in itself. The opening of the harp. I mean, that's oh man. When I hear that live, I was just it's so beautiful, because then it leads on as well into this big sweeping orchestra sound, and it's just so incredible. Speaking of you say that he has to write good stuff, and you're totally right. Video game music it's as much as we love the 8-bit music from, like, say, the original Mario series, that was essentially just there to keep you going along. It's moved on to something now, and I'm so excited to see where video game music goes from here, because I think it's got so much more room to grow, even beyond what it already is. Personally, that's how I feel. But awesome. Yeah, I loved hearing that. How about you, Zach?
Man, so I have to say, I wanted to be a little bit more prepared than I was last week. So I sat down with my girlfriend. We sat down, and I just thought, I'll just pick all my favourite ones. I'll just rattle off all the best tunes from and I'll just get her to listen. Because I've already decided a bunch, the list is just endless, and we'll just decide, she can decide what works for her. And part of the criteria for that was how much does a soundtrack make you want to play the game? Because I think that's really important, because how else do you sell a game? I mean, obviously nowadays things are a bit easy. You can have demos, you can have, it's just different. But obviously when a lot of these games that I'm going to list off came out, the only way that you got people excited about a game was through TV adverts. And that really doesn't give you an idea at all of what you're going to be playing. But they can give you an idea of how it's supposed to feel by music, and that I think is super important. So there is one that we're all going to be talking about, and to be fair, this is the one, once we got through them all, Bronwyn said to me, she was like, look, unless it's going to be this composer, I don't want to hear it. This stuff is too good. And I'm inclined to agree, because these tracks were, and I'm when we come to them, I'm going to list off 2 specific tracks that everyone should go away and listen to. But the big ones for me, man, big, I think one of the best ones of the last 15 years is Jesper Kyd, who did all of the Assassin's Creed stuff. I don't know if he's still doing them, because I have to say I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game recently. But he did certainly the Ezio trilogy, so he did 2, Brotherhood and Revelations. And apart from the fact that they feel really cinematic, they're really good at the storytelling, they also have this awesome blend of the era that they're, Ezio, whoever is in, combined with the modern stuff. Because obviously a big theme of that game that game series was about the sort of time travel thing,
the bleeding through the memories of the DNA.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole thing with the animus, it's got this kind of very sci-fi sort of feel to it. So it has to reflect that. It can't just be. And I think it was a great choice. You've got these great, these got these tarantellas and these sort of traditional Italian singing sounds, which are beautiful, combined with these more modern ideas. You've got a little bit of electronic in there, some great guitar parts, these awesome like lead guitar lines, really simple on their own, but when they build up, they're just like go and listen to Earth from Assassin's Creed 2. It's awesome. It's so good. Revelation's actually not a game I love very much. I'm not a big fan of that game, but again, the theme for it, like the main theme from that is so.
I was going to say Revelations.
It just sets up the story so well, makes you, and that to me is one that makes you want to play the game. Hearing it, and I remember I don't like that game very much, but I'll go back and play it because I love that music.
The music, yeah.
I like Constantinople. It's one of my favorite places in all of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it is
beautiful,
gorgeous.
So yeah, I could talk about Jesper Kid all day, guys.
Yeah.
Guy's a genius. Another big one for me, actually, I just recently, like a few months ago, dug out my old Dreamcast and spent ages trying to set it up because I didn't have one of the pieces and I couldn't get the piece for it. It needed I don't remember what I needed. I needed something that I didn't have. And I finally dug out Shenmue 1.
Nice.
Which is... I feel very strongly about that game because it's a game that I loved when I was a kid and stuff. But one thing that I don't think I really remembered was how good the soundtrack is. I think it suffers, obviously, because it's of a time, you know what I mean? Like, soundtracks, as you say, are getting better and better. Even if you go back and look at, like, you know, this is... I don't think it's orchestrated. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's MIDI. And that alone
MIDI,
it's bound to be, isn't it? For a Dreamcast. That alone does limit it, but it doesn't spoil it by any sense of the word. I think it, and actually a few of these soundtracks I did listen to modern orchestrated versions because I kind of wanted them to have their fair shake, you know. So that's a guy. So there's a few names associated with the Shenmue soundtrack. That's the main one that kept coming up in my 2 minutes of googling. Sorry, I didn't do my research. Takanobu Mitsuyoshi, which is I mean, the people who made that soundtrack just. They knew how to make something that felt of its time, you know, of the 1980s period in, you know, modern Japan, but also feel, you know, like this sweeping cinematic, because it's a cinematic game. You know, the game it's a story more than it's anything else.
Barely a story.
Ooh, shots fired.
You just walk
we're
around
gonna
town
have a punch up
hours.
about shit. I love Shenmue. Don't destroy them. So I haven't played any of the other ones. I haven't played 2 or 3, and I'm gonna. But I have a lot of nostalgia for that game. It's hard for me to be really objective, but I can be objective about the soundtrack because the soundtrack still holds up. But actually, interestingly, talking to Martin O'Donnell, the only other one that I really wanted to talk about was Christopher Larkin, who also contributed to the Halo series. He does maybe only one track, or maybe a couple, I'm not sure about this, but he does one in ODST. Did you guys play ODST?
Yeah, big fan.
Great game. And there's one track that's just like when you're just wandering around in like an empty... what town are you in that game?
New Mombasa, is it?
New Mombasa, maybe. There's like, we're just wandering around, there's not really anything going on. This beautiful piano track called No Stone Unturned.
Yes.
And the weirdest thing, I was playing Hollow Knight, which he also composed for... and I was listening to City of Tears in Hollow Knight, and I immediately thought, I bet that's the same composer as that particular track from Halo ODST, and I was totally right, which says a lot about his style, you know, I mean, like, he's very distinctive, and those are great tracks to listen to, actually, for anyone listening at home. Go listen to No Stone Unturned, and also anything from Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight has a great soundtrack. I think those are all the ones that I desperately wanted to talk about, apart from the one that no one wants to say. I think Jonny should say it because you kind of called it before we even talked about soundtracks. You knew this was going to be what we would end up coming to.
I've been wanting to talk about this probably since last year. So I'm going to give you a bit of, before I get into the game itself, I'm going to give you a bit of a backstory. I'm really bad when it comes to flying. I don't know if you remember this, Zach, but...
Oh, that's right.
You
freaked me out on the...
Yeah, I'm so sorry, man.
No, I'm only teasing you.
I really, really hate flying, and so I always try and play music that kind of relaxes me and calms me down, and I've got an amazing story. Before I get into the game...
that was really funny. We were just on a plane, and Jonny came to me, and he said, like, oh, do you mind sitting with me, because I'm, like, bad on planes? And I was like, yeah, of course, like, anytime. And you got so upset that it like freaked me out. I got I'm mostly, But to be fair, actually, that was quite a rough flight, I think.
I think, to be fair...
I think it was pretty rough.
I'm normally okay, but if it's a particularly rough flight, I'm just like, oh my god, we're going to die. That is kind of where my brain goes straight away. So I'll talk about games other than that, and then I'll come to that in a bit. So, I mean, Dav, you already mentioned the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy VII, I mentioned last week, the soundtrack is glorious, and I would recommend that remake just for the soundtrack. It's incredible. For me, personally, Final Fantasy X, that music is unbelievably beautiful. Just the Zanarkand theme for one, and then the ending theme for another when it brings it all back. It is just so beautiful, and it flows so well with the game itself. Honestly, whenever I get to the end of that game, I'm usually upset anyway, because it's one of my favorite games. So whenever I complete it, it's just like, oh man, I've completed it again. But also because the narrative is so beautiful that it's hard not to get swept away by the soundtrack as well. So those two games in particular. Another game series that I played recently is Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm so excited for Xenoblade Chronicles 1 next, the remake next month. Next month. Pre-ordered, baby. I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited. But is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 I was going to talk about. There's a few tracks. I think it's called In the Line Praetorium, where basically they have day versions of a track and they have the night version of a track. And the day version is both versions are choral pieces. So that in itself, the fact that we are, trained singers, I hear the choral pieces and I go, oh man, this is already singing to my soul already. I'm already there. But then, so the day track is it's men and women singing together, and it's really beautiful. And it's almost church-like. And then in the evening, it's just the men, and it becomes less church-like, where there's men and women singing together, more like monks singing, and monks it's never so seen in soothing. But you know what I mean? It's sort of like that. It's a different. It's a different vibe.
He's become a silent monk. He's doing a
silent monk. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking it on board, man. I'm taking it on board. But it's so incredibly beautiful. That game in general, the music across the whole game is beautiful, but those two tracks in particular, I would highly recommend you go to listen to.
Because I played the first 15 hours of Xenoblade Chronicles back when it first came out.
Yeah,
but it was
I remember you telling me
ugly.
about the time you played it again. You went back to replay it recently, and you were just like, "No, the graphics are so bad. You just can't do it these days."
Ugly. But luckily, definitive edition coming out. They've solved it. The faces are normal. It's not all as brown as it was. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it again. And yeah, the music, it was sensational. One of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard in my limited experience of it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that game series in general is just, it's incredible. But so the game I want to specifically talk about is Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Wind Waker might be, personally, I think it might be the most perfect Zelda soundtrack. There are other Zelda songs that I prefer. To some of the soundtracks, there are other songs that I prefer and I think are perfect Zelda tracks. But I don't know if a soundtrack in a Zelda game is more perfect than Wind Waker. And for me, it's... So I'll give you an example. I mean, I've convinced Rosie, for one, to have some of the tracks being played at the wedding.
That's so awesome.
Outset Island.
For that.
Outset Island is being played... I know, man. Honest to God, I'm so chuffed. Outset Island is being played before she walks down the aisle. So it's that... Dun, 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 dun. It's just, and that in itself, I'm so already happy. You're so happy, and I think it sets up the game perfectly as well, because you hear this music, and Link is in that game. He's not a hero. The game is not set up for him to be the hero. The only reason why he becomes the hero is because he goes to save his sister, and I think it's the most, that music, so much of the music is so pure, because it's not Link having this, I'm the hero. He becomes the hero, as he always does, but it starts off with him, he's just a pure, I want to save my sister, and that's all it is. And there's things like when he's waving goodbye to his grandmother, and the music is playing, it's like the music is playing is like I'm going on this huge adventure, and then it cuts back down because the pirates then start like almost like dissing him, and it's really funny because you get this grand music, and then all of a sudden like dun, 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 dun,
I was just going to say that change from the like.
It's like, so good.
What's the music? What's the theme that they do when he's waving? Is it like?
I think is it grandma's? I don't think it's grandma's.
Is it the one that's like?
Oh yes,
yeah. Oh god, yeah.
But and it's so moving.
It's the way that it cuts down from that into.
And
it's so funny.
And like Link, and the thing is as well, it doesn't start off being funny. It starts off with Link sincerely waving at his grandmother, who's terrified that she's not only lost her granddaughter, but she's now lost her grandson, who he's gone off to fight for her, and neither of them make we're talking about games here, but this is something we do as actors. It's what we're trained to do. Is that she's there and she's going, I don't know if they're going to come back. And it's things beyond that, man. It's I mean, Dragon Roost Island is amazing. That's another track.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. It's not my favorite, but it's a great track. Arl's theme.
I think one of the great things about it actually is the way that it's the cinematic use of it. I mean, for instance, when Arl is it Arl? Is that how it's
I never know if it's pronounced Arl or Errol. Let's go with Arl because that's what we're both saying.
We'll just say whatever.
Yeah.
But the point when she gets like picked up by the bird and taken off, the cinematic use of music. I mean, it's if you listen to the soundtrack, it's very clear what's going on.
Yeah.
At all times, and all the cutscenes. I mean, obviously the overworlds have awesome music. I mean, Zelda always does that, but I do think in terms of cinematics, it was certainly the first one of the Zeldas that really fine-tuned it to the specifics. And it's partly to do with, the type of animation that they used, because of course you couldn't do that with Ocarina or Majora or anything before that. But I do think you're dead right.
No, and it's the emotion in the characters as well, because this is the first time that Link could really emote and the characters could really emote. So Link, I love Ocarina of Time, but Link has no personality. And that's fine, because that works, because he's almost a blank canvas, and you're like you're putting your own personality into Link. This is how I play as Link, and he's just going around fighting, doing whatever he wants. But in Wind Waker, he has a personality, and he gets scared, and he gets and that's what makes it even more triumphant. And so one thing I was going to move on to is the Great Sea theme. So for me, every time I hear the Great Sea theme, I'm just going to talk about this and then one more song in that game, and then we'll move on. But essentially, every time I hear the Great Sea theme, I can't help but think, for me, it is the best. It's the best, like the adventure theme. That whenever you go to Hyrule Field, for me, it's the best one. And I think the reason why is because the way that it sets it up, it's almost like the music is telling Link to be careful because there's danger. You hear it. It starts off being. It starts off and it's like triumphant, but then it has that moment where it's like, but be careful, and then it just comes crashing in with the and it's like it's so like it's almost like it's almost like the music is willing Link on.
Totally.
And I think when I hear it, honest to God, one, I get goosebumps because I'm just like this. It's just so perfect, because we have to remember the Link in this game is a child. He's he's not an adult. He's not he's just going off. He's very naive and he goes off and do these things. So that theme in particular, but the one that gets me, and I do genuinely tear up. I've talked about crying so often in this. I don't know what's going on. Is the staff credits? It's just the end of the game, I would honestly, if you don't mind, it's not so much spoilers, but if you don't mind just listening to music from games, I would highly recommend anyone just going online and looking at the staff credits from the Wind Waker, because it just blends all of the best themes from the game into one medley, and it's so moving, especially when like Aryl's theme is in there, and what's her name? Oh my god, Tetra's theme is in there at some point, but. Yeah, so all these themes at one point are mixing together, and it's all played. And this, I mean, that was kind of the inspiration for this podcast in one sense. The fact that we're on a boat, it's video games ahoy. It's someone sailing across the sea. I mean, it's kind of the inspiration for the vibe that we wanted to go for. So, but yeah,
there was a point at which you wanted the logo to be the three of us as the three characters from that game. You wanted
I did specifically
as the Red King of Red Lions, me as Link, which I'm very flattered by, and yourself as Princess Zelda, which I think is wonderful.
I think anyone watching or hearing this will go, yes, They'll say that Dav is a triumphantly strong man.
Yeah. I'm a prepubescent boy.
Zach is a prepubescent, and I'm a beautiful woman.
I think Tetra gets shafted there, though. Tetra's much more of a character than...
Yeah, that's the trouble. That's always the issue, isn't it? As soon as we get to that point of the game, poor Tetra.
Also,
Tetra.
Quick note. Earlier on I said Uematsu did Chrono Trigger. It wasn't. It was Mitsuda who did Xenoblade Chronicles. He did Chrono Trigger.
There we are.
Sorry,
then.
Final Fantasy aficionados.
Yeah, you're gonna get your butt kicked.
Get some hate.
Getting Mitsuda'd.
Yeah. But yeah.
Oh wait, quickly before we go on,
yes,
two tracks you have to listen to is the game demo from Wind Waker, which my girlfriend said was the best piece of music she's ever listened to.
That's amazing.
Hilarious. And the other one is the game trailer from Twilight Princess. Both awesome, and for anyone who is questioning whether or not we are being fair in giving Koji Kondo all this love, seriously listen to those tracks because you're wrong. Koji Kondo deserves all of the love.
Yeah, he really does.
I mean, he didn't just do Zelda either, you know?
That's
Mario.
Yeah. Oh no. But yeah, so
sorry, I just wanted to squeeze that in before we moved on.
No, that was fine. I mean, that actually kind of wraps everything up in a neat little package. So I think it's time for us to move on to what games we're playing. We've talked a lot. I mean, to be fair, I actually really enjoyed the fact that we spent even more time than I anticipate talking about soundtracks, because you could tell that we all love soundtracks, man. We could talk about this all day. So yeah, Zach, what are you playing?
Oh, I am playing. Okay, so in the same vein as last week, I was talking about Shadow of the Colossus, which was the free release on PlayStation.
Yep.
One of the free releases right now is the Uncharted trilogy, which I never played when they came out. I think I'm right in saying the first one came out in like 2007.
It was I think it was 2007. I think it was PS3 era, and I had an Xbox. So
I'm about halfway through the first game, and I'm having a lot of the same sort of complaints that I had about Shadow of the Colossus. You know, I said like they would never make a game like this.
Jank.
Problems, whatever.
Yeah.
Jank. I've got a list of problems for Uncharted.
I feel like
ready.
I feel like jank should become just that. That is the title of whenever we refer to things that are not so good. It's just jank.
Here's some jank for you.
Okay. Hit us with some jank.
You would never make this game anymore. I'm going to list them off because I was actually angry about it. Regenerating health. Why? Get rid of it. I know it's 2007. Stop it. Janky climbing controls. The climbing, honestly, like, okay, say what you like about the early Assassin's Creeds, but honestly, it's so inconsistent. Like, sometimes it'll let you climb stuff, and sometimes it won't. Not to mention, there are things that you look at and you go, I could climb that, and I'm not an athletic Nathan Drake. But he's like, no, I can't.
No, you're a pre-pubescent boy.
I'm a pre-pubescent boy. Play cycle, man. I don't know if I'm only halfway through the game, so maybe it's more, but this is the play cycle. Climb stuff, shoot stuff, climb stuff, shoot stuff. And every time I'm climbing, I'm thinking, God, I can't wait until I get to shoot stuff. And every time I'm shooting stuff, I'm like, God, I can't wait to climb stuff. Because I don't like either of them. I'm sorry for Uncharted fans. I'm sure the game gets better, and I know it's 2007. Here's my list of jank. I was really upset about this game.
Well, Uncharted 2 is the peak, isn't it?
Well,
okay, I'm ready.
I would say if you're going to play any 2 and 4, the bet. It basically, the even numbers are good, and the odd numbers are kind of not so good.
This is why I want to keep playing, because I feel like it's going to get better.
2 is amazing, to be fair. It might still have the same issues, but the story is just so good.
This is my point. Okay, so I'm going to take a break from jank for a second, because there are 2 other games that came out of similar sort of time that I love. Assassin's Creed 2, which I already talked about, and Far Cry 3, which is a little bit later, but it has jank problems now. That was 2012, so even now it has jank. But you know what? I can still play both those games, because the stories are just awesome. Anyone who hasn't played them, it's probably too late because the jank's going to be too annoying, but the stories are awesome. I'm not going to go into it because it'll take me all day. And that is enough. Whereas Uncharted, it's like there's jank, and also I don't care about these characters. These characters don't change at all. They just spend the whole... Nathan Drake just goes like, I'm going to go around stealing stuff. And halfway through the game, he's like, I'm going to keep going around stealing stuff. I don't care, Nathan Drake. Again, I want to give it a break because it's 2007 and I get it, but just a little quick extra little jank that we got here.
But Zach, well, just not to cut you off, but like I don't always think that a game's age should we talked about Wind Waker earlier, and Wind Waker's graphically it's not aged amazing, but it still plays really well. Just because it
still plays really well.
Like, just because
I think
it's
Wind
old.
Waker's graphics have aged really well because of the sort of cartoony style that people hated when it first came out.
2002.
That's 2002,
which is like
is a long time ago now.
The fact that it still looks reasonably good is impressive. I mean, that was the cell shading.
I agree.
But yeah. I was just going to back up your point.
I agree. I think part of the problem, I mean, with any game that's trying to stipulate on reality, it's trying to say this is realism. Because in 2007, that game to us would have looked like, wow, look at these graphics.
I mean, it was.
But as soon as you start doing that, you are sort of digging a hole for yourself. You know, same as Far Cry 3, another favourite game of mine, it's going to get progressively more frustrating to go back and play because as the years go on, we're going to be expecting more from the level of jank. So I do agree, actually, and I do think the more simplistic and the more sort of cartoon style, it does lend itself massively. Yeah, I agree, actually. I sort of agree. 2007 is a long time ago, but it's not 2002, you know what I mean? Even Shenmue that I was playing recently, obviously Shenmue has huge problems that everyone, is frustrated with, but it's still... You can get around and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
can I also raise you...
Putting me in a bad mood.
Can I also raise you another game from the GameCube era?
Okay.
Metroid Prime. That still looks pretty good.
And it handles pretty well too.
I don't like how that game plays.
I don't like how
I agree. I'm with you. Yeah. It's not my favorite game.
I think I'm looking forward to it eventually coming out as part of the trilogy package, which I imagine it will, but just because you'll probably have the two sticks.
Controls, hopefully.
I honestly go because when I played it, it's just so weird to go from something like GoldenEye. And also, sorry to cut you off again, Zach. It's just thought, like when you said, you're totally right in that sense that just because it came out in 2007 doesn't mean the graphics should have aged or the controls should have aged so badly.
Graphics I'm okay with. Honestly, if something looks bad, like I said, I've been playing Shenmue. I'm fine with it, but it's when it stops being fun. Honestly, there's bits of the game where I'm just like, I just want to get past this part.
Yeah,
and I never want to feel like that about a game. I should never be going, I can't wait for this bit to end. Like, actually, speaking of Wind Waker, to be fair, original Wind Waker does have the Triforce problem.
It does have.
So the Triforce speaking of things, whatever, I'm just gonna let it go because it was one. I'm gonna call it a bad experiment. You know what I mean? The rest of the game is great, but Uncharted just feels like. It feels like unfinished to me, honestly. And again, at the time, it probably would have felt great. If I go back and play Assassin's Creed 2, which again, great game I love, I'll find the same problem.
Yeah.
But it does get held up by having this awesome story that Uncharted doesn't. I'm talking about the same stuff. The only other one thing I want to say is the combat is so dull that I don't do it at all. It tells you to fight people, and it's so boring and so stupid. You press square 3 times and then you kill someone, and what is the point? I could do that, and I could do that without the game being on. I could sit and press square 3 times and I would have just as much fun. I'm over it, I'm done, it's okay.
Sure.
Whew, a lot of anger about Uncharted 1. I'm going to keep going, guys. I'm going to give you an update in future episodes about my Uncharted experience.
Yeah, it does get better because I replayed that.
I think it will.
In 2017. Just because I think I played all 3 of them because again I didn't have a PS3. I had an Xbox 360, so I couldn't play them.
Same.
So in the lead up to Uncharted 4, because I had a PS4 and I wanted to buy it, I was like, okay, I'll play all 3 of them, and I had a very similar experience. I kind of wanted to get with 1, I was like, okay, it's done. 2, I was like, this is great. The story is so good. And then 3 was like, oh, okay, I'm done. And I think there was one thing. I do love those games. I do really enjoy them still. But I agree with what you're saying. And I think there's one thing as well. That game in particular gets. Because you are right, it tries to deal in realism quite a lot. It becomes frustrating then when you see a lot of things when you play something like Breath of the Wild now, and I know we're going back a lot of years, and I'm not saying that it should play like Breath of the Wild, but when you go back and play that, and it's one of those things where you can only climb in specific places, and you've got to go up something, you've got to climb around it. When you look at something and think, I should be able to climb there, like. There's a lot of old school logic in the climbing design.
Why design it that way? Why make a thing that clearly was designed to be climbed on? Literally, I was looking at this thing and I'm like, I must have to climb up there because that's so obvious. And he's just like, no, I can't do that. It's like, just make sure that your visual, your visual design has to correspond with your game design, because otherwise the conveyance is all over the place. How do you know? Why do I care?
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think Zach. I think Zach and Uncharted needs to be something that is a recurring theme until he's played all 4 of them, or until
I'm probably going to do that because I'm in lockdown, so I might as well. But really, I'm going to be kicking and screaming the whole way. I looked up how many chapters the first game has so that I could find out how close to the end I was.
That's always a sign of if you're enjoying
it. It's like, okay,
right,
seriously.
How many chapters? Okay, I'm on chapter 6. There's 9. Fine. Okay, I can do this.
No, genuinely, I got to chapter 8 and then I looked up. There was 22, and I was like, oh no. I'm like only a third of the way through.
That's amazing. I do love no, but like sometimes experiences like that are just as memorable in many ways. But also Zach, I'm gonna come back to you next week. I'm gonna come back to you next week with Uncharted. Dav, what about you? What have you been playing?
I've been playing a new release, XCOM Chimera Squad.
Nice.
So this is the 6th game since the XCOM reboot, kinda. You've got XCOM Enemy Unknown, XCOM Enemy Within, XCOM 2, The Bureau, XCOM Declassified before XCOM 2, XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, which is like a DLC of XCOM 2. And then you've got XCOM Chimera Squad, which builds upon what the rest of the series has done, but also takes things away in a way that makes me feel like it was built by a second team in training to then be sort of trained up to make the mainline games. The game was like on sale for half price to pre-order and is still, I mean, it won't be by the time this podcast is up, but it's half price until May the 1st. So I don't know, it feels like they're kind of saying something there, whether that's a kind lockdown gesture, like, go on, here's a game for you, or it's like, we just want to get this in your hands so we can see if the people who made it, if they liked it, if the people who made it were good at it, if people are liking it, what do they like, what don't they like, what can we change? And you can definitely see where the budget is less than a full price XCOM game, in that the cutscenes are these sort of this cartoon comic book style, sort of one of those things where it's like a still image, but like the camera pans over the still image to make it feel like it's moving. One of those things. However, saying all that, it feels like XCOM, and there's really strong choices that they've made. They've stripped back the scale of it all. So it's not about saving the world; it's about protecting a city.
Oh, nice.
Which is nice. It's so nice to just have a game where you're not having to save the world again.
The stakes are relatively high, but not like, world-saving high.
Yeah, so it's like in a world where it used to be the aliens were invading, then the aliens took over. You lost the war at the end of XCOM 1. Spoilers, that game's like 10 years old. It's your fault. And then you're now in a team of hybrids of aliens, humans, and hybrid people. And so like you have these different abilities that you've never had before. You've got these sort of psionic abilities. Different characters have different moves that like you've always had to fight against, but never as. Cool. And then you're fighting against teams that are a mix as well. And the game is structured is you have 3 factions that are causing mischief in the city. You could pick one to go up against first, and then you sort of do missions and all the rest of it in these 9 districts of the city. And then once you defeated one faction, the other 2 factions both get stronger, and then you choose one of those 2. And then you defeat them, and then you've got the third one, which has come doubly stronger because it's the third one they've had time to develop. And so the mission structure is really cool. So they're quicker missions, and you have 1 to 3 encounters in each mission. And for every encounter, you have a breach round. So there are different entrances to each room that you have to go into, and you, depending on what armor you have, what abilities your characters have, they can enter through different ways. So it could be like a side vent that you need a specific armor for that character to be wearing to go through. And then through the different entrances, you have different buffs and debuffs for like, if this person goes in first, then they're going to be marked and everyone's going to target them for the entire round. Or if this person goes last, they get a plus 50% dodge. So like they're going to be extra stealthy. And so you've got all these different buffs and debuffs. And then the people also have different breach abilities. So some of them might heal your team going in on a breach, but they can't be the person who breaches because then they're the breacher. And so like there's all this stuff, but it's done in a really intuitive way that makes you feel like you're making smart decisions and you're never overwhelmed, which I think is sometimes an issue because this whole breaching thing doesn't exist in the other XCOM games. So I think the other XCOM games, so even though Chimera Squad's added, it's taken away a lot of the complexity and the difficulty. It does feel a bit easier. It does feel easier. And the old XCOM games with a base building, it's often a thing of like trial by error. So like you might decide to build a laboratory on your second turn and then an armory on turn 5. And then later down the line you go, I screwed up. I should have built an armory first. But you don't know that until you're 10 hours in. And then you lose. And you lose all your units and you've got to try again. Whereas this, I've not lost yet. I failed a mission, but I've been able to restart that mission.
Right.
I'm just playing through it on normal at the moment. I will play it in late difficulties. I think so, because I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, all the complexities feel intuitive. They feel like, oh, this makes sense in this game. And it's got a real nice level of challenge throughout the whole game. I'm really enjoying it. I'm probably about 20 hours in. I reckon there's probably about 25 hours because I reckon once I've finished the third faction, there's probably like an overarching boss bad guy that I've got to take down. But no, really cool game. I think even when it's full price, it's only going to be like 16 quid.
Yeah, I did.
Really recommend.
It's all right.
Really recommend playing that if you like tactical, turn-based strategy games. Jonny, I know you do.
I do.
I really recommend it. It's really, really good stuff. And next week, I'm going to be talking about Gears Tactics. It'll be interesting to see the comparison there. But yeah,
that's
really good. Really
Gears Tactics had really good reviews. I've seen
I've seen
the reviews
that,
pretty good.
As soon as I finish with Chimera Squad, I'm going to tuck in.
Nice. So that's what we expect from Dav next week. Bit of Gears Tactics. Yeah, I played XCOM 2 like 3 days ago. I think did I tell you? It was free to download on Steam for like 5 days.
Yeah,
I played it for about an hour. I really enjoyed it, but I like I said, I've been so busy this last week that I couldn't invest the time to get on board with that. Mm-hmm. So but I really enjoyed it, and I love stuff like that. Do you know what? It weirdly reminded me of a game. I don't know if you guys have ever played this, but a game called Desperados. Did you ever play that? It was from like the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, and it was it was very similar to that. It wasn't like XCOM, but it was basically that similar sort of tactical type of game where you were basically a cowboy in the Wild West, and you had to gather all your pals up and go off and beat some guy. But it was very similar. You had to maneuver people around the map, and I saw that on Steam as well. It was linked, and I was like, oh man, do you know what? I think I'm gonna buy that. It's like £5. Relive some old glory days. But
you got Desperados, Commandos, those kind of games. Wasteland, Wasteland 3
Commandos is great as well. I used to love those games. I think I heard Commandos 2 is coming out on Switch, which is definitely worth it because it won't be much. I mean, saying that, Burnout that's coming out on the Switch is going to be like 50 quid, 50 quid, which is just insane. The game's like 12 years old.
So that Switch tax, that Nintendo tax.
Yeah, man, that Switch tax. But yeah, awesome, Dav. Thank you so much for letting us know about XCOM. That sounds wicked. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what you got to say about Gears next week.
I'm really glad you said something positive after my breakdown.
Yeah, Zach's breakdown.
I was like half expecting. I was like, I watched Dav sit and have a moan. Right, we are gonna bum people out.
Jonny, you're going to bum us out? What are you talking about?
Like I said, I have been playing. I played a little bit of XCOM. The one game I do always dip in and out of all the time, and it might be surprising to a lot of people, is Pro Evo. I do play football games all the time.
It's free now, isn't it? Free to play.
Is it? Man, I paid money for that game. Do you know what? I will always swear by Pro Evo. I just love the way that the mechanics are of the game. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. I did buy one game that I'm going to play for this week, and I'm very excited to talk about it next week. That's Horizon Zero Dawn, which I'm very, very excited to play because so many of my friends have played it, said it's amazing, and it came out around the same time as Zelda. So obviously, Breath of the Wild, I should say. Obviously, I had no time to play that because I was consumed with that game. And then Mario Odyssey, and then Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That year in itself, 2017, was ridiculous. Especially on Switch. Splatoon 2, Mario Kart, Zelda, Xenoblade Chronicles, what was the ARMS as well. I don't know why I did that to my screen. Punched through it. But the game I actually do want to talk about is a game I was so excited to play, and it definitely 100% lived up to expectations, and that is Journey. Have either of you guys played it?
No.
I downloaded it, same as you, man. But I haven't. I sort of decided I wanted to play it with someone else, so I'm waiting until I have someone to play with, because I feel like seems like the kind of game might be kind of nice to have a backseat gaming on.
Hear me out first. Hear me out, honestly, because I knew a little bit about Journey, but I knew that it wasn't at the top of my list, so I was trying not to find out too much about it, because it was one of those things where I'd rather not know a lot about it. So I knew that it was a multiplayer game. I was going to say,
I don't know very much about it.
I'll try not to be too spoilery in it, but it's like I said, it's more than anything else, it is one of the most beautiful and satisfying games I've ever played. I only played, it's about 2 hours long. It's one sitting, and it's just so one of the visuals, the fact that this is from 2012. That was shocking to me. I did not know it was from 2012. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna go back and go, oh, it's not from 2012. But when I looked it up, it said 2012, and the mechanics of the way your character walks in the sand, and the imprints it makes in the sand, and the way that it looks graphically is unbelievably good. It is so. So I've seen worse games that have come out recently compared to that game, and that game came out 8 years ago. So, I mean, like you said earlier about, we're not going to get back into Uncharted, but just because a game is old doesn't mean the graphics have to be bad, the mechanics have to be bad. Journey, it felt like it could have come out last week. It's still so good.
I mean, visually it is so...
and musically.
They're definitely not trying to do anything, do the realism thing, which definitely works in its
favour. It helps, yeah. But musically as well,
like, man. Yeah, if it's anything like any of their other games, like presumably the mechanics are fairly simplistic. Like we're not talking
really
about
simple.
Like anything massive. Yeah.
There's no attacking button. So your character is not about attacking. It's genuinely just about going from this point to that point. That's all the game is, and what I love about it as well is that it is very simple in that sense. It has very simple moments where you are just going from this point to that point, and that's a very simple thing to do. And it has things as well, like you start off in a desert area, which is such an obvious place to start in many games. You start off in desert, and then you end up going to an ice part of the world, and it's like it seems so obvious. However, the way that they do it, the way the game is designed, it felt so natural. It didn't feel like I was going, oh, now we're here. It felt like, oh no, it's snowing now. Oh no. And I think the game design, I'm really excited for you to play it, Zach, just to see if you feel very similarly. I have a feeling you might. Just because of the type of games you know. And well, the one thing I was going to say as well is the one thing it's really good at is the way that it starts off, the camera pans, and all you can see is the mountain that you've got to climb. And to me, it felt very similarly to Breath of the Wild. Obviously, nowhere near Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild came out in 2017. But in 2000, I have no idea if the Zelda team even looked at it and went, "This is something we can use." But it's just that idea of you can see it in the distance, and the world isn't necessarily open. You can't just go anywhere you want. But it feels open and it looks open, but it's not necessarily open. But you don't feel the urge to explore it in that sense, because you can see that's my target. That's what I've got to go. And they do an incredible job of that. They do an incredible job of leading you to places without thinking that, with leading you to the places they want you to go without you thinking you've lost control.
Exactly. It's. I think games have got a lot better at that over the past 10 years. At just saying like, hey, look at that thing.
Yeah, maybe try.
You don't have to go there, but like it would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's not like it didn't. Just from that experience alone, I was hooked. Okay, and then we get on to the fact that I didn't know. I knew that it was multiplayer, but I didn't know that it was online multiplayer and people randomly dropped into the game.
I didn't know it was multiplayer at all.
So
Oh, Jonny, you've ruined it for him. That's the best bit.
Spoiled the game. Wait, so can I play? Can I play it with someone else?
Well,
it's like in my living room.
No, I don't think you can. No.
Boo.
So basically, I was just traveling along and I just saw someone and I thought it was a computer. I went up to them and I was expecting them to do things that an AI would do, and it would be it would follow me or it would lead me, but they wouldn't stray from the path. They wouldn't do stupid things like jump randomly or just do. And it started doing that, and it's weird because initially I was like, okay, come on, let's go, and I was treating it like I was in charge and I was the person like, okay, here we go, it's computer again, and then I was like, oh, that's a person, and I didn't know that, and
that's cool,
and it's weird because the bond started to grow, and then you start following each other, and then you follow each other through the levels, and I was following this particular guy, and then we were going on for a long time, and then we got separated, and honestly,
oh no, that's so sad.
And it was so sad, and Rosie was at the kitchen doing work, and she was just like, all I could hear was just you going, oh no, where have you gone? And it's just every time.
Oh, that is really sad.
But then you'd find another person, and then you'd find, and then you might stay with them for the rest of the game, and you might find another person, and it's like, that's a good.
Funny though, you get separated and you find another person.
Exactly.
I think that's funny though, because like, say for instance, I play a little bit of Fortnite at the moment. Yes, I'm 5 years old.
And prepubescent boy.
Prepubescent boy.
Yeah.
But so if I'll play with like two friends and we'll play a 4-player game, so there'll be one extra person. And sometimes, honestly, the relationship you can create with someone who you're not even speaking to, because I'll have my, I'm just talking to my friend, and I'll sit there and I'll be thinking either I hate this guy because he took the weapon I wanted, or whatever, or sometimes he'll like come and do something awesome. It's just some person. But I can totally see how a game could take advantage of that and create a real like relationship with this other player character. That's really cool.
And it was really nice as well because it was a bonding experience that I just wasn't expecting to have.
Yeah.
And I think as
especially in lockdown.
And yeah, exactly, man. And one thing I would say as well is I do not agree with what I'm about to say 100%, but there are a lot of people who do think that video games shouldn't be considered as art. Now, that to me is ridiculous on so many levels, because how is music not art? How is even if you break down graphics, they're still essentially like moving cartoons. So how is that not art? But that game is one
next
of
week's topic sorted.
Yeah, exactly. Video games are art. Well, I mean, the thing is that like I've played some video games that have left a lasting impression on me way longer than some films. So and isn't that what art is? Art is about, if something is art, it moves you, whether that's good or bad. Uncharted. Let's not go there again. But the one thing I wanted to say...
I'm okay.
The one thing I did want to say about this, beyond that, is that ultimately it was just a beautiful shared experience that I wasn't expecting to have. And anyone that is thinking of a game to play that is just... Sometimes it's really hard, like with XCOM, like I said, to just pick up a game and play it. Because this is going to be 50 hours. This could be 100 hours. This could, you might not know how long it's going to be, but you have that feeling of this could take a lot of my time up. But I knew Journey was short, and if anyone ever needs a game to just pick them up for like an hour or two, I would recommend Journey. Just completely, it's one of the best things.
That's why they released Uncharted and Journey at the same time, was so that you could get really annoyed about how bad Uncharted is, and then calm down with Journey.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. But yeah, that's what I've been playing pretty much. Yeah. Have you guys played anything else, or is that all you've been playing as well?
Bastion with rage.
Say it again.
Completed Bastion in one night. Shout out
Bastion,
to that, really good stuff.
That's a great game as well.
A game that I just never played, and I know I should have. Kind of felt like maybe it's not as good now as it was then. Not as groundbreaking. There isn't much of like, wow, I can't believe they're doing this back then. It's like, no, that's a solid Xbox Live Arcade game.
Yeah, it is.
But I've got Transistor, which is also by Super Giant, Super Massive. I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, Super Giant, I think. But yeah, so looking forward to playing that. But yeah, Bastion was good.
Awesome. I think that leads us on to the final question. And as ever, These two gentlemen do not know what I'm going to ask them. It's really
my favourite part.
It's a favourite part of the whole show. It's
excited.
Okay.
It's the end.
It's the end. Yeah, exactly.
So I want to hear what you want to ask.
Okay, so the answers might only take 30 seconds. I think it might take a bit longer. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe celebrated its 3-year anniversary this week on the Switch. Obviously, it came out longer before that on the Wii U, but this last week was the third year it's been out on the Switch. It's the best-selling Switch game with an attachment rate of 1 game per every 3 consoles. So every 3 consoles has Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is insane when you think that the Switch has sold 60 million consoles. That's a lot of consoles, and that's a lot of copies of the game. So my point is, and it's again a two-parter. Firstly, how does Nintendo improve the next game? What can they do to make the next one, Mario Kart 9, better or different enough that it warrants, which is the second part, being released on the Switch? Do you think that the next Mario Kart will be released on the Switch, considering that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is not an original Switch game? It is a Wii U game that has been had all the DLC and a few other things added on top. So that's my question. Do you think that how do you think Nintendo can improve on Mario Kart? Where do you think they can go on the next Mario Kart? And do you think it comes out on the Switch? That's my question. Anyone take the lead? I don't mind.
I'll give my 2 cents. I don't think it will come out on the Switch.
Okay.
No.
And I think it'll be a launch game for whatever the Switch 2 is.
Yeah.
And I think it will be pretty much the same game. But maybe more characters in like a Smash kind of style.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Do you think that it becomes more of a Nintendo brand game? Because that was the first time certain characters had been added in. Like Link is there now as well. So
I think they'll have a better DLC line. They'll bring out more and more content. I think the reason why you haven't seen anything added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe really is because they're holding back in the same way that nothing got added to Super Mario Odyssey. As far as new worlds, I think they might be having an Odyssey 2.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think so too.
And I think maybe Odyssey 2 will come out on Switch, but Mario Kart 9, I think, will come out on launch of whatever the next console is, whether it's an iteration or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they are still selling Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It is still selling at full value.
That's what I was going to say.
It's insane how well it's selling. It's still rolling on, it's crazy, and I don't see why they would want to compete with themselves.
Yeah,
when they can use Mario Kart 9 to push sales for a next console.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do think that a Mario Kart 9 will come out on the Switch, but I don't think it will be for maybe another 2 years, and it will almost be towards the end of the console, and then they may port it again to the next.
That's very plausible.
I think they might.
Like with Zelda games.
Yeah, because they do that a lot with Zelda games. They tend to put 2 Zelda games out. And like I said, the Switch is the only Nintendo console apart from the original Nintendo console to not have a Mario Kart of its own. So I do think that a Mario Kart 9 or whatever they call it will be on the Switch. I don't think I think it'll be a while yet. But I totally agree with you, Dab. I think the sales numbers are still too good, and it's still one of the most desirable games for them to turn around and say, yeah, we want to bring Mario Kart 9 out and just, because Mario Kart 8 will plummet because they'll still price it at the price they always do. They'll just be competing with the next and possibly better one because. Zach, I'll come to you now, but there's one thing that I want to throw in there as well.
No.
One thing that I would love to see is an adventure style mode like Diddy Kong Racing, like that. To me, traversing a hub world, cool. I loved that with Diddy Kong Racing. That was one of my favorite games growing up. So maybe that's what they do to change up Mario Kart 9. But what about you, Zach? What do you think?
I don't know. With regards to a single player, I mean, the way the games are, as we know, they're moving away from single player campaigns. So many games are just focusing on multiplayer, and I get that. I think the one thing I was going to say is maybe that you would change the formula and make it one of these, move more towards the sort of the battle royale sort of line of selling, which is you give the game for free, but you charge people the whatever it is, the regular fees, and you get costumes up. But I think, as Dev said, with the sales being what they are, that it's selling at full price.
Yeah.
Like, that's so much money.
Yeah.
What is it, £50?
50 quid when I bought it originally, it was 50 quid, and it's still 50 quid, and I bought my Switch a couple of months after Dav. So
I played that game, Mario Kart 8, in 2013, I think, for the first time.
On the Wii U.
Even new. I'm pretty sure it wasn't new then.
But that's what I mean. It's been out,
and for a game to come out at full price after that amount of time, that's nuts. I was talking about it with Breath of the Wild, which is also going for full price.
Yes, it is.
But at least Breath of the Wild has been on sale, whereas I've never seen Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on sale. I might be wrong.
It does go on sale, but it doesn't go on sale very often, because again, it sells so well. They know that if they just leave it, people will still buy it.
Well, but it's the only game that I know where I have friends of mine who are not gamers at all going to me.
Well,
how do I get Mario Kart? Should I get it? What Mario Kart? They're actually talking about. It's a game they want to play, regardless of any. Tour.
Tour. There was
how many games? How many players did we have?
So we had Aiden had a Switch, Bethany had a Switch. These are people on tour with us, by the way. They're just random people. But there was 4 Switches on when we went on tour together, and so there was 8 of us playing Mario Kart. So there'd be two people sitting next to each other on a tour bus playing Mario Kart together.
Who had no interest in playing games half the time would come and play Mario Kart because everyone knows it, and it's really good. It is a really good multiplayer game. It's one of those games where I think you should. It's one of those sort of necessary things for if you want to play games with friends.
I do want to add one thing in to that on the tour bus.
Johnny's too good at Mario Kart. It's infuriating.
So basically, after a while, after about like maybe 2 weeks, they stopped inviting me to the Mario Kart. I started playing along, and I turned around and go, "What are you guys doing? We're playing Mario Kart. Am I invited?" No. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Because no, it's the.
No,
you were always like half a map ahead of me, and so now given that there were some people who'd never played Mario Kart, so they were really bad.
Yeah.
I have played Mario Kart a lot in my life, but I was still half a track behind Jonny at all times, and that is so infuriating. They let me play because I was good, but not that good.
No, to be fair, it is one of those games that I don't know what it is. It just clicks. You get games sometimes which just clicks.
I want Smash Brothers to be that level of popular.
I'm not that. I'm definitely not there with Smash Brothers.
But I want that game. No, but I want that game to be as popular. Like I want it to be that game. One of those because I don't really know exactly why it isn't. I suppose because it's not as well. It doesn't balance you as well. I mean, Mario Kart. If you're losing, it'll look after you.
That's true. And there are mechanics for beginners.
It.
You can literally leave the controller with the mechanics that it's got, and it will just drive.
That's true. You can.
It will be really slow, but it'll just drive along the track.
But I think that's good. It's a good way of getting people interested in games. Anything to get more people interested in games. I love that.
I think something I want to talk to you guys in the future is because I've seen it be a big thing, and maybe we'll save it for another time. We won't talk about it now, but it's levels of difficulty, because some people think that games should only be accessible if you can play them, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some I would love to play something on intense or the hardest difficulty, but I don't always have the time. So playing things sometimes on normal or even easy is just because I want to experience the game. But let's leave that for now. Let's park that right there. I think that's a perfect time to end this podcast. Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. Once again, you are both superstars. Thank you very much for listening to podcast number 2. Please follow us again, like I said earlier, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Follow us on Patreon. Go to all those places. We'd really, really, really appreciate it. And of course, make sure you stay safe. We love you all. That could just be Zach's mum, but we still love you. This is Jonathan, Dab, and Zach from Video Games Ahoy. And we'll see you soon.
Ahoy.
Ahoy. I was waiting for that again.